This video is sponsored by Starbond Adhesives.
Okay guys, today we're going to build this pie crust style table, except it's going to be a little bit of an experiment. I've been doing some testing with Starbond CA glue and accelerator, and the bond that this glue creates with wood is surprisingly strong, way stronger than I thought it was. So it got me thinking, what if we could use a really fast drying glue, like Starbond CA glue, for joinery, for gluing together furniture components? It would speed up production time incredibly. You wouldn't have to wait overnight for glue to dry anymore. So on this table, I used nothing but CA glue for all the joinery, the legs to the pedestal and the top of the pedestal, and over time I'm going to see how it fares. But I think it's an interesting concept, and if it works well, it could be a pretty big game changer for furniture makers. Let's build a table.
Alright, to start this build, we started at the lathe, turning the square blank round, and Erica wanted to get a little time on the lathe, so she came and did most of it for me, and then I just kind of finished things up here at the end. The wood for this table is coming from actually stock for a different table that I was making a few years ago and never finished, so this pedestal that we're turning now for this table is actually a table leg for that other table. And here I'm just kind of turning a pleasing shape. I don't actually have an idea of what I want it to look like. I'm just kind of turning until I get to something that I like. With the pedestal roughly shaped, I'm going to turn a tenon at the top of it, and this is going to fit a mortise in the underside of the tabletop. And I'm turning this down to 1 inch so that I can drill out the mortise with a 1-inch Forstner bit later on. With all that work done, I can go ahead and sand the pedestal up to 220 grit. Next, I decided to work on the top of the table, and the diameter of the tabletop is 12 inches. That's because that's the capacity of my lathe. But you can see that other circle there, I had originally decided to make it 14 inches until I remembered that my lathe can only take 12-inch diameter turning. And with the top mounted in my lathe, I can go ahead and start turning the edge of it to bring it into round. Next, I could work on the underside of the tabletop, and here I'm just trying to go for a contour, just to give it some shape to the underside. And with the shaping done, it's back to sanding up to 220 grit. With the top turned around, I can go ahead and work on the top of the tabletop, and so I start by flattening it out. And I want the top to have sort of a lip to it, so I go ahead and create that lip, and that means I have to remove a lot of the material inside of the top. And with the shape mostly roughed out here, I'm just trying to take a scraping pass to get the top as flat as I can. With the top off the lathe, I can go ahead and drill that 1-inch mortise that we were talking about before. That's going to allow me to attach the pedestal to the tabletop. Next, it was time to cut out the legs, and I just sort of drew a shape on a piece of wood here, and I'm going to cut it out and take it over to my oscillating spindle sander and refine the shape. And once that's done, I'm going to use one leg as a template over on my router to create exact matches for the other 2 legs. To attach the template to the rough-shaped leg, I'm going to use some Starbond Thin CA glue, as well as the accelerator and some blue tape. This is a really easy way to attach your templates to your workpieces prior to routing them. With that done, I'm using a flush trim bit in my router to make exact copies of the leg I'm using as a template. Next, I put a round over bit in my router and gave all the edges of each leg a nice round over. And with all the legs made, it's time to start working on the joinery for this piece, and I decided on dowels instead of the traditional sliding dovetail for a couple of reasons. And I'm using a square here on my bench to help me drill perpendicular holes in both the pedestal as well as the legs themselves. Next, I used a chisel to create a flat spot on the pedestal where the legs will attach to it. So here I'm gluing in the dowels that will attach the legs to the pedestal, and I decided to use Starbond's Thick CA glue formula for this, just in case there were any small gaps in there between the hole that I drilled and the dowel. So I'm just putting some glue inside of the hole and then inserting the dowel and spraying it with some accelerator. To attach the leg to the pedestal, again I'm using Starbond's Thick CA glue formula on the dowels, and then spraying the leg itself with the activator and joining the two pieces together. And here you can see just how quickly this sets up. It really does only take a few seconds to cure, and you're ready to continue working. Again, if this is a viable method for gluing furniture parts together, it can really save furniture makers time. And again, using the thick formula from Starbond to attach the tabletop to the pedestal. If you'd like to start using Starbond CA glue in your shop, go to starbond.com and use the code MDESIGN to get 15% off your order. With the table all glued together and everything sanded up to 220 grit, it's time to apply the finish. And for this piece, I'm using Total Boat's Halcyon finish in amber. In total, I applied 3 coats of finish, sanding up to 1000 grit on the last coat. And here's the finished piece sitting in its new home.